We are going to talk about a movie.
This is gonna be a disaster.
It was one of the best movies of the year.
It's gonna go so well. Probably one of the last movies I would ever want to see in a theater.
Hello and welcome to today's episode of 10 Years On. I am your host, Jacob London, and we are, of course, looking at the films released on March 5th, 2010. I am joined by my wonderful co-host, as always. Taylor, how are you going?
I'm in pain, to be honest with you. This is going to be a rough session for me.
This is a rough week.
There's one movie I have quite a bit to say about, and one movie that I really have nothing. So it's going to be an interesting dichotomy this time.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm also joined by our other two regular panelists, Nick and Peter. How are you guys both going?
Oh, very good. Very good. I got sunburnt this weekend and it didn't hurt as much as watching one of these movies, so I got things to say.
I mean, that sunburn has to be less painful than your girlfriend catching you watching one of these movies. So. Oh
yes, there's definitely a lot more things I could explain easier than one of the things she walked in on this week. So
I can't wait for people to realize what movie we're talking about. Like if you're watching it, just watch porn instead.
Easier to explain to your partner.
Well, let's move on to the film that we are talking about, and that is, of course, Alice in Wonderland. Alice in Wonderland. The live action version of Alice in Wonderland. Oh, this movie breaks my heart. All right, let's move on to this film.
What's our description this week? I'm very excited.
19-year-old Alice returns to the magical world from her childhood adventures, where she reunites with old friends and learns her true destiny to end the Red Queen's reign of terror.
I mean, that's a perfectly apt description.
Yeah, I hate this poster. I hate it with a capital H. Like, this is, first of all, Alice isn't even the focal point of this poster.
Yeah, it's like Alice in Wonderland. Johnny Depp is interesting.
First of all, that's unacceptable.
Yeah.
Like,
agreed.
I mean, I like how colorful it is. I'll give it that much. But like,
because the movie's not.
Yeah, because this isn't selling what kind of movie you're getting. Somehow, they're like, oh, you want trippy as fuck Alice in Wonderland? Here's a poster that pretends we're gonna give you that, but instead we're just gonna give you some doom and gloom,
mushrooms and all. They're really trying to get us tripped out.
And I also hate this poster because Mad Hatter looks horrific in this movie, but this poster is like nightmare. Like, look at his face in this poster.
It's creepy as hell.
This is nightmares.
And it's...
Oh, God.
You need to warn a bitch before you do
Jesus
Christ.
As I said, nightmare material.
That was...
Can you just...
Jesus.
Can we turn it off?
My heart...
Out of all the things you could have focused on with posters from, like, we could have been zooming in on The Rock's crotch for my benefit, and you give us Johnny Depp's face.
My heart rate's actually increased for a second. I had a palpitation. That was scary.
It's okay, Jason Momoa.
So, all right, let's talk about Alice in Wonderland.
This movie...
Let's let Taylor talk about
Go
it.
straight in.
So I've watched this movie twice recently, thanks to this gentleman on my right here. Twice within the last 2 years, I have had to sit through this movie.
Wow.
And he's still my boyfriend at this point. So that's...
It's like the cinematic equivalent of, like, if we can survive an IKEA trip, if we can survive 2 Alice in Wonderlands, then we're fine.
And look, like, this movie breaks my heart because the animated Alice in Wonderland is something that my aunt and I, like, grew up watching together. Like, she has so much, like, she would have, like, picture frames, and she had a cookie jar, and she had, like, just everything was Alice in Wonderland for her. And I grew up really appreciating just how, like, weird and crazy it was compared to the cartoons that you were getting from other Disney movies, like the princess stories and things like that. And it was always very interesting to me. And then we heard we were getting a live action one, and you'd think, oh, okay, Tim Burton, like, that seems like a smart choice. Like, it seems like this is going to be what you want to get out of it. And then I saw it, and I just felt like I had been betrayed. Like, my best friend just, like, took me to my death. Like, it was just one of those things where you're like, I trusted you.
Like, you clubbed me
Like-
right in front of me. Like I saw my own death.
It felt very much like that. And then watching it 2 more times felt like that even more. And this movie is really dark and really gloomy. It doesn't really use the color palettes that you should get out of Alice in Wonderland at all. The effects are really, really bad.
They are so
The
dated.
freaking
so dated.
like
It was rough.
like the Mad Hatter and the rabbit just like they look like they're on cocaine like through most of it, like
I mean,
but not in the fun way, like the like
Yes,
it's
this is bad cocaine, you guys.
like, you know, you can have fun with cocaine, or you
Yeah.
can have this nightmare of a movie where
remember
like
that, kids.
we're
You
like
can have fun with
we're
cocaine.
like you're just twitching out. Like that's what this movie is. It's not the fun version of drugs like the
No.
original cartoon.
It's a bad trip. This
Like,
movie
it
is
is.
100% a bad
I don't
trip.
mean to. I'm not trying to endorse drugs, but that's the only way I can think of it.
But that's how they wrote Alice in
But
Wonderland.
that's
you know
what
I mean?
but that's
Like,
what I'm trying. The
it's-
point I'm trying to make.
Yeah.
Like the movie that I grew up with was like a fun
Yes.
trip. It was like you're
Yeah.
tripping out, but it's
It's
fun and it's
colours,
colorful
it's
and it's
characters,
like.
it's enjoyable.
And
yeah.
this movie was like the bad side of what happens.
Like, and it's boring.
It's
It
boring,
takes
and
the
it's-
longest possible ways to get to things within the movie. Like the opening sequence is far too long. Like,
Yeah.
get me in the rabbit hole way quicker
I like
than
all
this
the stuff
movie.
with the
Yeah.
wedding and
Oh,
everything.
so boring.
of
I
the
didn't give
wedding.
2 shits. I mean, I didn't give 2 shits going into it, but like that was not a good way to start the movie for me.
No.
And the special effects are so dated. I wrote down that I feel like Snapchat filters have better CG. Like this movie is just Snapchat filter faces on
Like this was
everyone.
very much a movie that, I mean, it was released in 3D.
That's
And I
right,
think
yeah.
it was one of those movies that like looked good in 3D because everything was, you know, like close to your
was
face and immersive.
depth and
animation
immersion.
looks good in 3D. But then you watch it now and you're like, we're not watching it in 3D.
Yeah.
And these effects are 10 years old. And even though this movie costs like $200 million to make, you have Tweedledee and Tweedledum.
Dude, when they came on screen,
Like, what the
I wanted to
actual-
cry.
Yeah.
Like I remember it being bad.
Yeah.
But like
That's
No,
it.
it's
It's like
bad.
we were like, it was a case of, yeah, I remember this not being good. And you go, so past Pete, well done for thinking that. But now also, oh, you're older and wiser, so everything is so much worse.
So much worse.
like the one thing that will always piss me off about this movie more than anything, because there are a lot of things that make me just severely angry about this movie, but the ending of the movie, in terms of everyone finally comes together and they're like, oh, the Mad Hatter can finally unleash his secret power that he hasn't been able to do and we've been waiting for this whole movie. And Johnny Depp just starts doing horrible dance moves. And that's the big, that's the face that I was making.
I
And
said-
then
The dancing at the end of the
fucking
movie.
Alice does it.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
I just,
And that's the big climactic ending.
One of my notes
everywhere.
about that was the dancing and music at the end made me wish life would end. Because that was just, I was sitting there and I'd already gone through all of this and I completely forgot that was the ending. And then I sat there and just went, fuck, this show's not worth it anymore. Like, I think I've hit my breaking point in March.
all right, well,
of
next week
2020.
we'll have someone else besides Nick. That's all right. I've got enough for both of us. It's fine.
Not gonna lie, there's a movie next week that kind of made me almost go, you know what? So we'll tease that for next week.
But you've been a little quiet. What
Okay.
are
I hate this movie. Like, I do not. The reason why we have rewatched this twice in the last year is because last year I wanted to redo all the live actions before we went into 2 giant live action remakes. So that's why we've rewatched it. It's
Was it Aladdin and Lion
Aladdin
King?
and Lion King.
Yeah.
I wanted to rewatch all of them. We got about halfway through and I went, nah, this is just not worth it. So,
Then you concocted another plan to try and finish the movie. Well done, sir. It's paid off. And you brought us with you.
I did. So I really hate this movie. Bit of history. This was the first ever review I wrote
Oh, wow.
for this film.
wow.
I don't have it anymore. It's somewhere on an old Facebook
That's
account.
how much I hated
Yeah.
it. I was like, I'm throwing my review away.
So my first review was a lot kinder than I can remember, because I remember that one, and I think I remember ending it with Johnny Depp is amazing in this film. I'm an idiot.
Hey,
And you all have...
retrospect is a wonderful thing, my friend. We learn from our mistakes.
Because he's not.
No.
A lot of people in this movie aren't. Because, like,
Dude, poor Anne.
I know.
Poor Anne Hathaway,
I know.
dude.
She's trying.
trying.
Like, I remember her talking about Helena Bonham Carter's head, how she's like, is she still? And that kind of gave me a bit of a giggle. But fucking Helena Bonham Carter.
It's insufferable.
Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
Every time she says off with his head, off with her head, there's just something about the delivery
It's
of
the
it. that
baby
just-
voice. It's a
Yeah.
whiny voice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because it's like, I've got nothing else to contribute or I've got no comeback, so just off with his head. And it's said in this very whiny...
It's super
Tone.
baby childlike.
It is. It's not like a menacing thing.
No,
it's more
no.
just like, oh, I'm bored and I want to complain and just take their hit. Like,
Yeah.
it's not, you don't get any sort of like,
And you can make the character like that, but then you have to deal, like, there's no growth. She doesn't become more evil. She's just the same whiny person for the entire movie.
Yeah.
So you don't,
Like, she's one note the entire time.
you kind of just like,
If
well,
that.
if
and
she does, she does.
hate that they did that thing with her head.
Yeah.
Like, I hate it. Like, there was no,
There's no reason
thematic
for it.
reason
No.
at all.
I think
like,
it was just like, oh, we can make
How
special
weird
effects.
can we make this?
Let's do that.
And that's the other thing with this film is that it was post-converted 3D.
Yeah.
That was... like everyone kind of had that thing of 3D's coming and Avatar's going to change the game. No one knew that it was going to change the game quite as much as it did, but they knew, and so Disney were like post-convert.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's not aged well.
But then, like, because
at all.
basically, apart from the beginning with all like the wedding stuff, like it's all just a CGI created landscape.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
you can really
You can
tell. Like, you can
super
see
tell.
when Mia Wasikowska is walking, you're just like, you're not there.
No.
Nothing around you is real.
I,
There's nothing remotely natural about any of it.
and I hate what they did with Cheshire Cat in this freaking movie. They just made him boring,
The
colored
fucking
house cat.
Vacation cat.
Like,
Dear
but
God.
that doesn't even bother me. But they took a pink and purple cat
Yeah.
and made him a two-tone gray cat.
And
like-
it was Alan Rickman was the... Wait, who
No,
played
Alan
the
Rick,
cat? Was it-
Stephen Fry's the cat.
Yeah.
Who was Alan
Alan
Rickman?
Rickman's the
The
caterpillar.
caterpillar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm getting those two confused. But I mean, that's such a waste of a voice actor
Yeah.
too.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean, talking about that, this cast it's such a good cast.
It is. Yeah.
Like
it
at
is.
the end when the credits are rolling, I'm like, wow, there's a lot of like Tim Burton seems to be able to convince
during the
people
credits
to
when
do
that
stuff.
sick pop song was playing
Avril
too, by the
Lavigne.
way.
Hell yeah.
But I mean, look, at this point though, Tim Burton still had trust.
That's it.
Like
Yeah.
he there was
Fair.
still that going into this film. It was a match made in heaven.
Yeah.
It was Tim Burton
Yeah, but-
doing Alice in Wonderland. This was the film we all wanted of like, oh my God, this is going to be amazing. I will never forget that walking in going, I am so excited for
Yeah.
this.
Well, I was too.
And then just the heartbreak of walking out going, walking out going, this wasn't good, but it wasn't like, I think I tricked myself and going, this wasn't good, but it wasn't that bad. And then
Yeah.
you watch it
Yeah,
again
I think,
10 years later.
I think
and you go,
because like we've all got some sort of connection to the original story, and Tim Burton's like his early filmography is so good.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And this cast is so good that you do sort of want to be like, oh, I'll find the good in this because surely it's in there. And then you almost just like, I can't forgive any of this. Like, and especially when you watch it now going, yeah, I really can't forgive any of this.
yeah, I mean, especially considering after this he did Dark Shadows, which is a train wreck. And then Big Eyes isn't
Big Eyes
too
is the
bad.
best film he's
it's-
done in a
it's-
long time.
Yeah, it's not too bad, but then Miss Peculiar and Dumbo, like
Miss Peregrine.
Miss Peregrine, Miss Peregrine, like
Miss Peregrine in the title that's this big. So,
yeah,
yeah, it's
yeah.
quick note. Fuddle whacking is sex, right?
I don't know, Nick, is it?
I don't
Wouldn't
know.
know.
I don't
Never
know.
had it. But that's like that conversation, right?
Oh, we're having a conversation now. I think.
That so The way that, like, I still don't know what it is. Like, I don't know what funnel whacking is, but every time they kept saying it, and the way that, like, they were talking about it, I was like, are they all gonna fuck later? Like, is this where this movie, like, I knew the movie wasn't going there, but that's definitely I didn't know that illusion, but I was like, I can't remember how old I was when this movie came out. I was young.
Well, deduct 10 years
Deduct-
from now.
I'm not having a good day. I also like cop out, let's not forget. But yeah, that's like, is that what it's supposed to be?
I forgot that
yeah,
was even a
like,
thing.
I
So.
think
That was the standout of the
Yeah.
movie to me, the funnel whacking, to be fair. So,
I mean, it sounds like it should be.
okay. Go back and rewatch the
I'd-
scene if you
I'd-
do
I'd
care.
enjoy
Like,
it.
if you-
never rewatching this movie. I don't care that we have a sequel coming in 6 years. I am never rewatching this movie again. And I think you put it perfectly when if at some point my kids ever want to watch this movie, I'll say no.
I draw the line. I cannot have it in my house.
not my child.
No. Well, that was Alice in Wonderland.
So, 4 strong recommendations to watch that one.
4 very, very, very strong, happy recommendations you should all check out. The live... I can't
The
even
thing is, though,
finish
you
that
probably all
sentence.
have because it made like $1 billion. So you've all watched it.
You've all seen the first one. Then you decided we're not
Yeah,
seeing
no.
a sequel 6 years later.
6 years is way too fucking long.
Way too long.
Yeah,
even
especially,
even
like-
back then,
Yeah.
6 years was way too long.
And especially for a movie that no one was remotely clamoring for.
Yeah.
Like, it made bank, but it hasn't stood any test of time. Like
No.
People weren't
about
talking
in
about
some
it.
Sort of,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's move on to our next movie. Brooklyn's Finest. 3 unconnected Brooklyn cops wind up at the same deadly location after enduring vastly different career paths. This movie, that literally just gives the spoiler.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Like-
God, yeah.
Yeah,
That's just-
that tells you the ending of the movie essentially.
This poster's telling you their worlds are going to get turned upside down. Like, that is not a good poster either.
I never even noticed that until you just said that.
Neither
That
did
is
I.
a
Yeah.
terrible poster.
Oh, yeah, the city's upside down.
Yeah. Richard Gere didn't show up for that photo shoot. That's
I don't
definitely
think
from
any
the
of them
movie.
did. Wesley
No.
Snipes is probably in jail.
At that point, yeah,
At that,
probably,
yeah,
actually.
fair.
Probably.
Ethan Hawke's like, yeah, I worked with you on training day, so I'll do that again. Anton
Fuqua.
Fuqua?
Fuqua.
Fuqua.
And,
why is the sun out if the movie's predominantly set at night? I don't know.
But why is the sun placed there?
Yeah.
Like artistically, that's
Like,
not even.
technically it should really be upside down over
Yeah.
the city.
Yeah.
So this is just,
This is just bad.
and like,
This is war. This is Brooklyn. All right.
I mean,
I mean, if you flip that around, it maybe would have made a little like this is
Oh,
Brooklyn,
can we do that?
this
That
is
might
war.
look really funny.
If you can zoom in on Johnny Depp's face, surely you can change that for us right now.
I may attempt later, but I can't do it right now.
no live
it's probably
photoshopping.
it's just giving us something to talk about because this movie is
But-
just it's such a non-event.
Think about this for 2010 though. Like Richard Gere, maybe not so much, but like you got Ethan Hawke re-teaming with Anton Fuqua, where they say from the director of Training Day,
Yeah.
which like is arguably one of the coolest fucking cop movies ever, and then you get this.
Yeah.
A movie that doesn't know what it is until they reveal the plot twist or they reveal the movie in the literal synopsis of the film. Like,
This is not a good movie. And it's
I think it's a movie that suffers from they knew how they wanted it to end, and then they had to make up a way to get there.
Reverse
and it was
engineer,
just
yeah.
boring. Like
so boring.
they wanted this really big, exciting, impactful ending, but then the road they took to get there was like,
Yeah, because it's like 3/4 of just boring shit.
Yeah.
And then 1/4 of like, you're giving us so much. Oh, the movie's end. Oh, it's finished.
Yeah,
Like
and-
it's just like so much at the end. And then the thing at the end is also like, where the hell did that come from?
Yeah.
Like Richard Gere saving the sex
Yeah,
traffic.
yeah, that
Like,
didn't even fit
that
in.
didn't fit it. Like, and of course, it's his last week on the job. Like, okay, have we not heard this before? Like, fuck.
and yet he's the only one that survives. I do find that a little
That's
bit
kind of
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, you are expecting like it's his last week on the job. Like
He's
he's
gonna
gonna die.
Yeah.
Like they always do.
Yeah.
But no, he'll
this
live.
film has no focus for the first 2 acts.
No.
Like, it is just such a, we're going to go here and we're going to go here. Nothing really alludes to the fact that they're going to interconnect. No one's talking about someone else's case or like something that's happened that sort of intertwines.
And Richard Gere's character even says it at the beginning. This is this precinct.
Yeah.
You don't arrest someone outside of our number precinct.
Yeah.
So
love it,
like,
yeah.
It's like, yeah.
so it's like draw the lines. These stories are clearly never going to intersect because if they can't do like interconnecting precincts,
but wait.
for no fucking reason, they're all going to end up at this one spot.
Ugh,
That makes no sense.
no sense.
And it's a giant cliche, and I hate when movies do this, but there's a reason they do that, and that is show the last scene of the film at the start and build up so that everyone goes, oh, that's what we're
This
leading
is-
to.
yeah.
Like, it's a cliche, and hey, good on the film for doing a cliche dodge. You didn't replace it with anything, though, and you,
But, like,
and
I
you
think
just
we
made a
would've at
boring
least-
film.
Maybe liked it a bit more, but at least like seeing that at the end, seeing the end at the beginning, we would sort of been like, okay, we know that this is going to lead to something, because you're
Yeah.
watching this whole movie going, I don't know where any of you characters are going,
what's
and
the
I just
point?
don't care.
No. I think Richard Gere was severely miscast in this movie.
Yeah.
I did not like it. He's too... Proper's the wrong word, but he's just... I don't believe him as a jaded cop. Like,
No.
who's
Well, he
towards the
was
end of
getting,
his-
wasn't like he was leaving after like for like what was it, like unremarkable service or something?
He was leaving. He basically was he got to the minimum that you had to get to before your pension stopped going up anymore. He had basically 22 years of an unremarkable career. He hadn't done anything. He had not overachieved in anything. He'd never moved from being a beat cop. Like, it was, everyone was kind of like, that was the thing of just like,
It's time to go.
yeah, he's done nothing, and he's basically here because he wants a pension at some
Which then I guess makes the ending like that much more
Yeah, like,
impactful, because it's like, oh, he finally gets to do something.
And you're right. He was miscast
Super
because you're right in that you don't feel like he is a jaded cop at all in that film. Like, that he's just not good in
No,
it. And
I don't know who I would cast to replace him. I just know watching him, I'm like, one of these things is not like the other, and it's Richard Gere, like straight away. So because Ethan Hawke makes sense. Like I was kind of like in my head playing out the scenario that like this is his continuation on from Training Day to an extent. Like he's sort of like at the end of Training Day, he has become like sort of more like Denzel Washington's character. He's realized this is how these things work, and that's cool. Focus on that a bit more, but then again, it also goes nowhere ultimately. So, and because it's Anton Fuqua, it makes sense. But
I think that was something like I agree with you with Ethan Hawke that he, his story was the most interesting of the three
I think 'cause he was the most interesting out of for me anyway. But
And I guess because he's trying to get his family to a better situation.
Yeah.
Like, he's like doing dirty things on the side, but for the right reason.
Yeah,
So I guess his
yeah.
character's actually got some sort of motivation to do something.
Yeah, like you actually can kind of, go, okay, I can understand why you think this is the only option you have. Like when everyone's, sarcastic, like not sarcastically, but the doctors say, "Have you tried moving?" It's like, yeah, it's Brooklyn. Have you, like, it's not
Brooklyn,
cheap.
It's war. It's just all my poster.
Like it's I get where his character's coming from. Don Cheadle's is kind of.
we've seen the undercover cop thing so many times. Like we've got it in The Departed a few years earlier. We have it in Donnie Brasco. Like they don't add anything to the undercover cop. genre.
The only thing I like that they added was that he wants out to just sit on a desk. Like that's the one thing he wants to do, and I liked that aspect of it. But even then, it was just boring. It was just. I didn't care about his character at all, and I never cared what
It doesn't feel like his character goes anywhere. Like, we don't see his character really do anything throughout the film. He says he wants to be on a desk, and then we don't really see much happen to him, or like him, like...
He doesn't even really get like roped back
But that's
into
what I'm
anything.
like.
Yeah.
They just don't really do anything with his character at all. Like, it's just, I don't understand really what his story is beyond him yelling that he wants to be on a desk.
Just
instead
shouting
of,
on phones.
Like,
I need to get out of here, man. I'm gonna die. And it's like,
And they'll be like,
Can you keep
Richard
doing a
Gere's
little
gonna retire. He can have his desk. But wait, different precincts.
Yeah, you can't do that.
Come across those lines.
can't do that.
This movie is also 2 hours and 15
Oh my
minutes
God.
long. It is
It is so
long.
long.
It's
It's
fucking long.
so just
And you
boring.
and you feel the length to the point where you're like, this has been going on for 8 hours, right? Like, it's so long. It's unnecessary.
I because we were watching it on the TV and I just like pressed the
No,
button.
you were like, do I want to know?
Yeah, I was debating.
much
Do
is-
I want
It's
to?
always
Yeah.
a bit like,
It's
And I clicked on it like really quick, and I was like, nope, you don't. You really don't.
Yeah. Oh man, it's just not a good movie. I will say, the opening is a way to draw you in. Like I
yeah.
think the
Oh,
opening
yeah.
kind of works in that. Oh, okay. Like it's such a surprise because also D'Onofrio's a big actor.
Yeah.
Now.
Yeah.
and it does quite come out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Like they're talking and then bang. And you're sort of like, oh, okay, I'm interested. Like,
Yeah.
oh, this
Yeah.
will get me.
Yeah.
Like, if Ethan Hawke's just going to be like a wild card and shoot people, oh, that'd be good. And
And then it just fizzles out.
Yeah, and they don't really do anything with it. It's like,
It
oh, yeah.
starts with a big bang and ends with a big bang, but
And
like the
there's
middle
this-
is
yeah,
just
and
like
that's just
Nothing
a
in the
lot
middle.
of
yeah.
crappy foreplay.
Like
in
it's
the
just
middle.
like there's nothing to keep you entertained
No.
between those two things.
No.
And then by the end, when everything just starts happening all at once, you go,
You've completely
What?
you've completely just
Like-
like disconnected by then. So
Yeah.
so trying to like get your attention again, you're like
It actually just seems like a senseless shootout. You kind of watching, it's like, oh, cool, guns and,
Yeah.
and drugs
there's,
and
like
yeah.
you're not emotionally
And
invested at
then
all.
freeze frame on Richard Gere, and you're like, oh, this is where we're ending the movie.
My biggest example that I was saying while watching it was, oh, you just crammed an entire season of The Wire into
Yeah.
a 2-hour film. Like that's
That's a
the
good call.
ambition that you were going for is, oh, we want to tell this super connected story about cops and criminals and all the relationships between them and how they're all connected. And And it's like, but we're going to do it in 2 hours and not give a shit about any of the characters.
Yeah.
And that's just the biggest problem that it's got. Is
We
that,
almost sort of appreciate if they just like took like a Valentine's Day route and just went,
Yeah.
what? Let's just put all these different characters together and give them 5 minutes each.
The Valentine's
They
Day
each
of
be
cop
different
movies.
priests. I just realized I said Valentine's Day route.
But like you're right, that could have actually been a bit more interesting in that, okay, we could actually get 5 minutes to try and care about
Yeah.
someone.
Yeah.
Instead,
Call it precincts.
yeah, like I don't know, it's not a good movie.
It's kind of ironic that it's called Brooklyn's Finest, because I know that's obviously what the nickname for police
Oh,
is.
the irony.
And then, but it's like you're discharging Richard Gere for an unremarkable career. Like, I wouldn't call him the finest police officer. He'd be very mediocre. Brooklyn's most mediocre is probably what I would call this movie.
Yeah.
I mean, it's Brooklyn's finest, but it's constantly at war. There's just constantly a war going on. So
I mean, this is Brooklyn.
You know?
This is war.
And like even the scenes, you know, the thing with the first cop, with the first partner he gets, where then there's just a cut to, oh, the partner died.
Oh,
That's
and
right.
that never gets brought up again. Like
they're like,
it's,
oh, poor kid, bye.
yeah.
Yeah.
poor
And, like-
Tom Hardy look alike.
but he never even
Logan Marshall
Logan
Green.
Yeah, but like he never gets a moment to reflect on that or to think about, oh, like it kind of reaffirms him. No, I made the right choice, which is counter to what he does at the end of the film.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
But
make
he's really
sense.
just like, I just want to retire. Like, he just died. I don't care. Give me a new one.
It's kind of
Replace
you
this
just
all good.
cycle him through. It's great because at the beginning he's like, I don't want to do this. Like I have a week left.
But then, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. And then, but you'll end up saving the day for a story that has never been mentioned at all.
It gets brought up in like one half a frame where like he's walking into his apartment and then or
sees
the
the-
prostitute's apartment. I can't even remember which
Yeah.
one, and sees one of the women get taken, or not taken, but like
that's
Yeah,
right.
that's literally the only
And Liam Neeson
shot.
was a few years too late.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
Wasn't in
that's
Europe,
it.
so I didn't care.
Yeah, that's the end of the film.
Yeah.
It doesn't like the only time it gets mentioned, and then
Truly unremarkable, isn't it? It's just
Yeah.
so mediocre.
Yeah. And it's like such a shame because you've got 4 great actors on the poster, like cast. Then you've got
Anton
Vincent D'Onofrio, Lily Taylor. You got directed by Anton Fuqua, who's
It-
got a
who-
great career, like got a great filmography.
If he made every film like he made Training Day, then he would be regarded as one of the best directors ever. Unfortunately, he also did Olympus Has Fallen. But like, you know what I mean? This movie isn't necessarily bad. It's just boring as fuck.
And you know, where people go, oh, so did you hate it as much as Alice? No.
No.
No,
Like,
not at all.
but
But it's like we hated Alice with such a passion. It's like, if you're gonna be a bad movie, be really bad. Because at least we'll have something to talk about.
That's the thing Jacob and I say all the time. If a movie is fine, that's the worst thing it can be.
Yeah.
Because you can't really feel passionate either way.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it's just fine, and then there's nothing to talk about.
Yeah.
It's like
Dear John of
and that's the thing. It's a 2 out of 5 for me. Like, it's just a movie that I saw it. Like, cool, whatever, move on. Like, it's not a good movie. It's not a terribly bad film. I'm not gonna like rant about it for half an hour. Like it's just a shit movie. Like it's just a bad movie.
But
that
it's not
I saw.
a bad movie.
That's the worst part.
Yeah.
Like, it's just completely fine, like you said, and that's not
Well,
cool.
it's Brooklyn. It's
Brooklyn's fine.
Fine.
It's fine.
This is
fine.
Brooklyn. This is war. This is fine.
Nah.
Put that on the poster.
Yeah, but that was Brooklyn's Finest. Not really a recommend around the board.
Watch
Nah.
Training Day instead. Same director, better movie.
Yeah. Well, let's move on to the weekend box office. We had Alice in Wonderland open to number 1 at $116 million. Yep. That happened. That happened, guys.
God, it's one
Planet
time.
Earth, you have so much to answer.
It's the one time in the show I wish Avatar came back up to the top.
Like, would that be when box office openings really started like amping up?
I don't have the actual figure in front of
Yeah.
me, but Spider-Man did 100.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And several films had done 100 at this point. Like the record was still Dark Knight at 150.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But you think about that. That's Dark Knight at 150 in 2010. We now have a $300 million film.
Yeah.
So you're.
I feel like 2010 onwards is when box office openings really became like a thing.
Yeah.
That
Like-
people,
Well, this decade was really the generational, the split really of you had huge hits and you had if your film didn't open to 100 million, it was considered a flop.
Yeah.
And we don't agree with that on this channel.
Because we saw that, and that's the biggest thing they talked about in this decade was the death of the $40 million movie. Like, no one was making mid-budget movies. You had to be studio tentpole or independent feature for less than $5 million.
And then suddenly this little streaming service called Netflix came out and started making $40 million films. But anyway, number
I
two.
wonder how Netflix is going.
Yeah.
We will get to that in 2015, I think, was when their first film came out. Anyway, we'll talk about it then. Second at the box office, we had Brooklyn's Finest with $13.3 million. It opened to $13 million. That just goes to show you, though, that this was the real end of, a cast can open a film.
Yeah.
If you have a cast like this, you maybe can actually get a little bit of film back. Like, you can get you can get double digits in a film back, which... Anyway, number 3, Shutter Island with 13.2 million. Number 4, Cop Out with 9.2. Avatar with 8.1. Crazies with 7 million. Percy Jackson with 5.1 million. Valentine's Day with 4.1 million. Crazy Heart with 3.3 million. And Dear John with $2.78 million. Dropping off from last week is Tooth Fairy, which dropped from 9th, and The Wolfman, which dropped from 8th.
Yeah. Crazy Heart's still in there.
It is.
So good.
It is. Well, considering next week is the Academy Awards, Crazy Heart is still in there and be interesting. All right, let's move on to the big movie news stories. We had Haley Steinfeld is cast in True Grit. This movie opens in December.
Yeah, how good's that?
That's just crazy.
That's some
just
Clint Eastwood vibes. Hey, it's like, let's shoot this all in 10 days and it's going to be, well, not so much anymore, but it's going to, spoilers for next year, it wins a few Oscars. So.
It doesn't.
Oh, it doesn't.
It's
No,
nominated for
yeah,
10 and didn't win a single one. It was that year's Irishman.
Oh, fuck. That makes me sad 'cause I love that movie.
Yeah, it doesn't win a single Oscar.
Was this her first movie as well?
I believe so.
I think
Yes.
she got the end introducing Haley Steinfeld credit, and then she became...
The household name, Haley Steinfeld.
She became a very popular singer.
10 years ago.
We also had Fast 5 is officially announced and confirmed to be set in Brazil. At the time, it wasn't confirmed. However, it has since been confirmed that they basically they retooled the Brazilian Job script. So for those of you who don't know, the Italian Job was a 2003 remake of the original classic with Mark Wahlberg, Jason Statham, Charlize Theron. Like, there's quite a big cast in that. Ed Norton's in that, even though he hated it. He did not want to be in that movie. It was a mediocre hit. Didn't do great, but it did okay numbers.
I think it eventually cracked 100.
Like it
took its time, but it cracked it.
It made enough for the studio to make money back, but it didn't it didn't go, oh, we need to make a sequel. But they did greenlight the writing of a sequel. So this script was written called The Brazilian Job. Eventually, the film just never got made, and Fast Five bought that script and retooled it to become Fast Five.
And that's because Fast Five is the one that really changed the game for the Fast saga too, when it became more of an action franchise rather than a racing
We're
franchise.
no longer
So
just bootlegging DVD players.
Yeah.
They're going to go international and steal a vault from a bank and drive it down the street.
which is fucking cool, by the way. I love Fast
so good.
Five.
Yeah, Fast Five was the film that went, no, we are going to start taking these films, quote unquote,
Seriously.
like not seriously in terms of
but-
like, we're going to go crazy with it.
We're going to evolve it into something different.
And again, also, we get to that later, but certain actor joins the cast in Fast Five.
Who could it be?
And lastly, WB announced their intention to release all major blockbusters in 3D following the success of Avatar and the anticipated success of Alice in Wonderland. Sucker Punch and Green Zone are confirmed for 3D.
Green Lantern.
Green Lantern.
I was going to say Green Zone.
So, Sucker Punch and Green Lantern are confirmed for 3D post-conversions, along with the final 2 parts of Harry Potter. Ultimately, only the second part would, because they ran out of time for the first part.
Imagine the Green Zone in 3D. Paul Greengrass shaky cam, and you're trying to watch that in 3D.
You're just like throwing up as bullets are flying at your head.
Immersive.
Glad that didn't happen.
Yeah.
40x Green Zone. You'd be
Fuck me,
Stop it.
But in all seriousness, though,
God.
like, it's pretty interesting how much we start to see the landscape just completely go, hey, 3D's the next thing. And they all get on board. Like, over the next couple of weeks, we just get stories about X Studio has announced that this film is going to get a post-converted 3D. It is terrible.
I frickin' hate 3D, and I always have. Like, even as a kid, I was just not about it.
I remember how big it was, though. Like,
It was freaking huge in the US.
Yeah.
It was,
was-
massive.
Yeah.
They definitely tried to make it big
Like-
here. That's for sure.
It started big here, and then,
And then it
we
just completely tapered off.
we kind of realized
That it was a gimmick.
Australians are
Very
stingy.
quick.
We're like, I don't want to pay extra for a fucking ticket. It's
bought-
going to
and
jump
that
off my
was the thing.
face.
3D TV and
that was the
everything.
thing, that if the theaters hadn't raised the ticket prices, if they were if it was just the same ticket
general-
price,
yeah.
3D would have stayed.
Yeah.
It was the extra ticket price that killed it. And
And then like pay your $1 for your glasses.
that too.
So then at home you end up with like 20,000 pairs, which I could use
Did you guys
on my TV.
Don't tell
that
me.
was a thing here?
Yeah,
Like
you had
paid for your glasses.
Yeah,
and
you
You
paid
paid
it
for
to-
them like the first, like if you're smart enough, you paid for them and then you kept them.
Yeah.
And if you were like knew you were going to go to a 3D movie,
Yeah.
but I guess,
But
I
you-
mean, by then I was seeing everything at screening, so
So
I was
you-
just given glasses.
Yeah.
'Cause
No,
then-
the theater would just like give you glasses as you walked in, and you'd put them in a bin, and they'd sanitize them and give them
Yeah.
I think it's
back out.
They
I
still
think it
try and do that,
started
yeah.
later on that way, but I remember when you first bought tickets, it was like you had to add.
Oh,
on
no,
a
you
$1.
still have
No,
to
you
pay.
don't.
Yeah, I used to give them away for
Nah,
I know my boss
that-
isn't watching this. I don't give a shit. I used to give them away for free because I didn't believe it. And I
That
was
sounds
like,
like
fuck
some
that.
hot garbage. No
Yeah.
wonder people here didn't want to like
well, that
see.
was like 3D. It came. I will never forget. It came in like a little, like plastic bag
Yeah.
thing, and you ripped it open every time, and you could keep those glasses. The problem you had was as soon as they touched anything,
You're done.
that you couldn't watch.
You can't clean them. You can't.
Yeah.
They're flimsy pieces of plastic shit. Like
Yeah.
they're
So-
not even worth $1.
Yeah, so you paid $1 every single
That's
time you saw these movies.
garbage.
So you would pay $3 extra on top of it. So a ticket was $10.
Yeah.
You'd pay $3 for the 3D, and then you'd pay $1 for the glasses.
And then you'd put a mortgage on for popcorn and a drink. So
Forgotten what it's like to pay for tickets.
We still had 9 years
you
of
still had-
Yeah, we still got a decade of actually paying for movies. And I even worked for a theatre for 3 years and I still had to pay for them. So.
Oh man.
God.
Well, that is the major movie news from this week. In Australian release dates, we had Alice in Wonderland open today. Dear John opened in Australia today. And The Men Who Stare at Goats opened today.
We got that very late.
Yeah, we did. So those three films
no
opened in
Brooklyn's
Australia.
Finest.
No,
Went straight to DVD here.
yeah, I was going to say,
Yeah.
pretty sure it did, yeah.
I've never seen The Men Who Stare at Goats, but there was this guy I dated, and I told him my favorite film was Inglourious Bastards, and he always thought I was talking about The Men Who Stare at Goats. So for a long time, he thought that was my favorite movie because he thought that was Inglourious Bastards.
But you know what? Because you haven't seen it. Also, bad form if he never said we should watch your favorite movie. He never suggested it.
And then he pulls
then
out
you would have been able
Men
to
Who
be like,
Stare at
oh, all right,
Goats."
let's just watch this. What?
He starts saying, I love George Clooney in Inglourious Bastards. And you're just
You're
like,
like-
oh, you're
like,
dumb,
oh,
sweetie,
yeah.
aren't you?
It's like, oh, he's getting him and Brad Pitt confused.
It happens all the
So
time.
that's
All the time.
just a little fun fact for
Oh,
y'all,
shit.
with why that relationship didn't work out.
I'd say check it out. It's like, I enjoyed Men Who Stare at Goats.
God.
I've never actually seen it as well. Like I've never gone from start to finish. I've just heard. Like I remember walking up. My dad was watching it one day on like Foxtel, and I just watched about maybe 5 minutes. I went, "What the fuck is this movie?"
It's weird, but like I don't know. I don't have a good track record with weird movies. I like weird movies, but like it's actually I enjoyed it a lot. It's Jeff Bridges, like peak Jeff Bridges. Like you don't understand. You watch it with subtitles because he's not speaking English. I'm pretty sure.
No, that's
Jeff Bridges.
slightly.
Well, guys, thank you so much for checking out this week's episode of 10 Years On. Guys, we have the audio version up and running. You can now actually listen below. Click the link so you can see the audio
Yes.
version.
I mean,
Make
you won't
sure
get our
share.
awesome facial expressions.
Yes.
But, you know.
Yeah, so make sure you go down, share the link, let your friends know, and please, on Apple Podcasts, please give us a rating. Just give us a star rating and leave a comment. That would help us so much.
Yes.
Otherwise, like, subscribe, share this video. Thank you so much, guys. I want to thank my wonderful panel as well for joining us as always,
You're so welcome, Jacob.
for putting up with these terrible movies.
Wait till next week.
If you guys have been watching along with us, please let us know, because
Yes.
if there are any brave souls out there that have been trying to play along.
Suffer with us through the pain.
Next week, we have some fun ones to talk about. We have Green Zone, She's Out of My League, Remember Me, and Our Family.
Oh. Sorry.
If you're on
So-
the audio version, you really are just missing out.
Yeah. So, guys, we will see you next week. Until then, my name is Jacob London. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. Take care.